The life of a single mom started out of my own story and out of feeling like as a single mom, I was walking alone. My need for a support group is what really launched the Life of a Single Mom Ministries. Our motto is, no single mom walks alone. We believe that if a single mom has a place that she can walk in and she is surrounded by other single moms who understand her journey, it's going to change her life.
Hey everybody, I'm Jennifer Maggio with The Life of a Single Mom. We have had an amazing time with our video series, and today is going to be no different. I have with me a very special guest, Crystal Tullos, and many of you will remember Crystal because she has been part of our National Single Moms Conference every year, and she's from Story Heights Church in Boston, Massachusetts. So welcome, Crystal, to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here today and be a part of this.
So she's in the South today for our filming, and she said that weather today in Boston was going to be
we're getting anywhere from 12 to 24 inches of snow overnight.
Okay, so it's 70 degrees today as we're filming this in Louisiana. So
and
welcome home.
My hair has already adjusted to the humidity. It's nice and frizzy. So.
Oh my gosh, this is, Crystal was actually my older children's youth pastor many years ago. And so she and I go back several years, and she's just been a great friend to this ministry. And I know many of you have been blessed by her speaking and just being able to pour into you guys. And so I thought it would be a great one to have her on today as we talk about the danger of isolation, which all of us, single mom or not, can fall into. And so when we talk about isolation in general, and particularly as we think about from a leadership perspective, talk to me a little about those times when you've had a tendency to isolate.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it doesn't matter what space of life that you're in, everyone has the danger and to isolate. Yeah. I know specifically we fall into kind of a victim mentality where we think nobody understands me, nobody's going through what I'm going, nobody gets what I'm going through. And I've had moments like that where, you just feel like you're all alone. You feel like the whole world is staring at you, where you're just kind of in a glass bowl. And I've learned in all reality, that's actually not the case. That's just kind of what your perception of the situation is. And so there are some dangers, though, that I have learned from when I tend to start drifting into that isolation period that hopefully we can address here.
Yeah, I think it's also there's this, if you've been hurt, and most of us have.
Absolutely. Part of being human, right?
Yeah, and then especially if you've been hurt in the church.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so if you've gone to a single mom's Bible study and somebody didn't say the right thing to you, or they didn't greet you the right way, or maybe you went through a divorce and your church pastor didn't say the right thing and it resulted in hurt, it's much easier then to journey down this isolation path.
Absolutely.
Because exactly what you said, this idea of nobody has gone through what I've gone through.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Satan wants for us, is for us to be convinced that there's no one else out there that's like us.
Absolutely.
And so my hope for the next few minutes is that we would talk through some things of how, number one, to recognize that we're isolating, and then number two, like, what do we do? What is the importance of staying in community with one another?
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit about what you feel like is the importance of staying connected in community?
Well, I think, okay, so here's the mental picture I always get about isolation is like antelopes that travel in a herd, and I always picture, like, you'll watch it on National Geographic or the Discovery Channel or something like that, there's always those like one or two stupid antelopes that, fall to the back of the herd, and they're at the back of the pack, and they're all by themselves, and with zero awareness that the lion who is hunting this herd is about to pick them off because they're all by themselves, they're not with the group, they're unprotected. And so when I begin to drift into isolation, I kind of quickly, go back to that National Geographic, video of Crystal, you're becoming that stupid antelope that's all by yourself. And you're in danger right now, that there's somebody after me. And, for those of you who are believers, it's the enemy, it's the devil, and he's after us, and he wants to steal, kill, and destroy whatever is in your life that's good. And he does that by convincing us to isolate, that we don't actually need the proverbial herd that I'm talking about.
Yeah, or that we don't fit in. So we may think, okay, I'm lonely, I'm really struggling right now, I'm maybe even battling suicidal thoughts, but you feel like, but nobody has it like I do. The abuse that I've suffered, or I have to pretend to have it all together.
Yeah, and I would just validate that you're right. nobody's been through exactly what you've been through.
Yeah.
You're a unique person with unique situations, but that doesn't make you untouchable. It doesn't it's not like nobody is familiar with a similar kind of pain, you know? And I think when we buy into that lie, you're in trouble, you know?
Yeah. So what are the after effects? So we isolate, we succumb to Satan's manipulation in our heads, and we isolate. We fall away from church, we fall away from Bible study, we disconnect from our girlfriends. What happens then for most of us?
Well, what I notice both in my life and what I notice in other people's lives of what's going on with them, I notice a few things. Number one, I really start seeing their growth stunted, where you know they when they were in the herd, so to speak, when they were a part of the group, they were growing. There was a vibrancy about how they were parenting, how they were getting back into the dating world, their time with God, how they were growing as a Christian, their joy was growing. Their hope was growing. And all of a sudden we begin to isolate. We begin to stop replying to the text messages, stop going to small groups, stop going to support group, whatever it is. And all of a sudden the growth that we were experiencing that was growing by leaps and bounds begins to really stunt. And you can see this in nature. A child needs to be a part of a family. If you just put a baby in a room all by themselves and shut the door and they never have any contact with the outside world, that child's development is going to be impacted. It's going to be stunted. And I think that's one of the dangers that we face. I think another danger that we face with our growth being stunted, I think that our potential is really paralyzed, that the potential that could come from that growth, we have no idea what is on the other side of our pain.
Yeah.
We just really don't. And while we're going through the process, that in between of going from the point of that pain where it happened and the process of working out and getting to the other side of that, many times we don't understand the good that's on the other side of it. Because that's what God promises, right? That He'll bring all things together for our good if we'll live according to His purpose.
Yeah.
But many times we isolate, and what happens is it just kind of freeze frames. It puts a paralysis on the purpose that we're eventually going to get to, whether it's somebody else that you're helping or, a job that's going to come because of the experiences that you have. You never get there because you just kind of get stuck, in that process. So
it's so funny. You know what I think about? Someone said this to me one day. They had written off the church because of the hurt. They had been, I've tried that whole church thing before, and just the hypocrites that were in the church and the hurt that had been taking place there. But this is what's crazy. We don't write off Walmart whenever we get a bad cashier.
100%.
We don't write off any other life experience except for church.
Absolutely.
And so for those that are out there right now that are like, hey, I've tried to connect and I have been hurt over and over and over again. What would you say to them?
You got to go back.
Yeah.
I really believe we're living in a time where there is a generation of people that are so hurt by authority in a church or leadership by a church. They did something wrong. They weren't integrous. They lied. They hurt people. And I 100%, I get that. And there were many times I wanted to leave the church. But you can't influence something if you're not a part of something. And you can't change things if you're not in it, if you're not committed to it. And I realized that you're like, well, how am I going to change it? I don't have any influence. Well, you have to be there and you have to keep showing up, because at the end of the day, if you say you're mad at the church, well, you have a bad concept of what church is. You are the church.
Yeah.
The church is not the pastor. The church is not the choir. The church is not the worship leaders. The church is not the small group leaders. It's a combination of all of us together. We're a body. And so honestly, I always tell people when they leave the church, well, you're stupid, because the only person that's going to suffer is you.
Right.
It's like you're cutting yourself off from the body. And now you're like this, arm that's just dismembered,
like a
from
useless
the body.
arm, right?
And what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's this. It's like the loneliness only then escalates because you've now cut yourself off from people who aren't perfect, and none of us are perfect, and we all have those people in our families that have hurt us. We all have people in the church that have hurt us in every other life experience. And I think once we get to a place of making a decision to stay planted, then that's where the credibility comes that impacts change. Because change doesn't come when someone sits down with you as the lead pastor of a church and says, I don't really like the way y'all are doing worship right now.
Yeah.
That's not how change comes. Right. It comes over a period of time when they've established a relationship and they have established credibility from being rooted and grounded. And that's the same thing is true whenever you go through that. Okay, the church maybe has some areas of improvement. So instead of falling away, I'm going to stay rooted and grounded there so that I can then impact that change.
Yeah, and
so important.
At the end of the day, you may never even get an opportunity to tell me how you feel about this church.
Yeah.
Depending on the church size or whatever, you may never have that opportunity. But I've just learned that God will take care of his church. It's, the pastors and the leadership, they can do what they want, but God will have his way. And that's what's able for you to just kind of like take a deep breath and just be like, you know what? I can surrender here. I can be a part of this despite what I feel like needs to change. Because if it really does need to change, I promise you stay around the church long enough, it will change because God will make sure it changes.
Yes, so true. Thank you so much for just sharing. We could go on and on about this topic of isolation, and especially just the history that we've gone through of being hurt in church before. But I appreciate you and what you do in the Boston area and how you have impacted so many single moms' lives through the life of a single mom. So thank you guys today for joining us, and I'm hopeful that you will be aware if you're isolating. I'm hopeful that you will be aware of those people in your life that love you, that want you to connect to the local church. If you are in danger of isolation right now, go to the website, thelifeofasinglemom.com, and find a single mom support group near you by simply putting in your zip code. We love you, and no single mom walks alone.